What's going on, guys? So today I want to talk to you about my top 5 favorite smallmouth bass fishing lures. You know, the leaves are changing colors here in my neck of the woods and people are buying pumpkins for some reason, and the only thing that I can think about is fishing, because this is my absolute favorite time of year to catch basically any species of fish, whether it's muskies, you know, they're getting real big, chunky. This is when the real trophies are caught. Crappies are starting to school up, and bass and walleyes are putting on the feed bag. That's why right now is my favorite time of year. But for this video, I want to talk to you, like I said, about my top 5 favorite smallmouth bass baits. And it's tough to talk about any kind of bass fishing without talking about jigs, jigging peg. Now when I'm thinking jigs in fall, I'm typically thinking about anything that would imitate a crawfish. As you can see, I got the flappers right here, and this is sort of like a darker color that may imitate a craw. Another big color this time of year is gonna be red. Anytime you're imitating crawfish, red is a really big color. Now what I'll do with this jig is I will cast it out onto structure, in particular where I think crawfish are gonna be. So that's typically where there's gonna be some rocks, and smallmouth bass love rocks anyway. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cast this out and I'm gonna slow roll it across the bottom. And bottom contact is important, that's where craws live. And every now and then, you give it a little pop. So you'll roll it, pop, roll it, pop. And this can be an absolute killer technique for smallmouth bass in fall. So the next bait on the list is gonna be vertical minnow baits. So on top I have a jig and wrap here, underneath I have the puppet minnow. And both these lures can be excellent for smallmouth bass in fall, particularly in late fall when they're schooled up really heavy in deep water. So what I'll do is I'll find fish on the electronics and I'll drop this bait right on top of them and maybe suspend it a few inches above them, and I'll jig it, maybe I'll give it a pop, get their attention, and when I see the mark coming up to the fish, I'll slowly reel up, kind of like ice fishing.
Oh!
Oftentimes where you're gonna find smallmouth bass in late fall is the same places where they're gonna be wintering. So it would make sense that an ice fishing lure would be a great presentation to catch them. Now another vertical fishing presentation I like to use is drop shotting. Now drop shotting is an extremely versatile tactic. It works great for vertical fishing when you're marking fish in your electronics, sort of like how we were using the jig and wrap, but it can also be casted. I like to pitch this out over different rocky flats or on top of a point and just slowly reel it back, and you can feel the weight dragging across the bottom. All you have to do is pitch it out, drag it back, and this lure will be imparting action as it's going through the water column, and fish absolutely love it. Now these worm style baits work really well, minnow style baits work well too, but my absolute favorite is a wacky Senko. And there's something about this stupid little piece of plastic that just gets bit. It was fall when the Bassmaster Elite Series came to Mille Lacs Lake, and that's how Seth Feider caught him. Just wacky rigging a Senko on a drop shot. Absolute killer. Now next on my list has to be a swim bait. You cannot talk about smallmouth bass in fall without talking about swim baits. In particular, big swim baits. So this right here is a 5-inch swim bait. I will use 5-inch quite a bit, but I'll also use a 6-inch, probably more often. In fall, these smallmouth bass are loaded up, fattening up for winter, and they really like to eat bigger food. So swim bait is a big deal. You cast it out over deep structure and these fish just absolutely munch it. So the way I like to fish it, just so you know, is I'll cast it out, let it sink down to the bottom, and don't start reeling until it hits the bottom. And what I'll do is I'll slow roll this bait across the bottom, just enough to make this tail kick. And if the fish are in a really good mood, I'll even upsize my head a little bit. So typically I'll run a 3/4 ounce head, but when I want to fish faster, I'll upsize to a 1 ounce head so it'll get down to the bottom quicker and I can reel it faster while maintaining bottom contact. So swim baits are killer, but something that might be even more killer, in my personal opinion, is an A-rig. A-rigs are probably my favorite way to catch smallmouth bass. So for the configuration of this bait, what I will normally do is I'll run 4 small swim baits up top with light heads, and typically I'll even go a little bit bigger than this, but you know, like a 3-inch swim bait works great. And then what you do on the bottom of the rig is you take your big swim bait, usually a 5 or a 6-inch swim bait works great. And let's see if I can pop this puppy on here. There we go. It's always harder than it needs to be. And what you got is you have 1 big swim bait on the bottom. And in Minnesota, we're only allowed to have 1 hook. So you're allowed to fish an A-rig, but it's only supposed to have 1 hook. These top baits all have their hook clipped off, and this bottom one is the one that catches the fish. It's also worth noting that if you live in a state where you're allowed to have more than 1 hook, let's say you can have 2 hooks in your state, then what I would do is I would take one of these and I would bend it down to the bottom. So I would have 2 big ones on the bottom and then 3 small ones on top. And that just gives the fish another option. But when you're running the rig like this, 95% of the time, the fish will bite this big one. Because it's different, because it's bigger, it's key that this bait is actually a little bit bigger and even a different color as well. That's also important. So, like I said, almost 95% of the time they will bite this. And if they do bite this and you miss them, they'll almost always come back and bite this bait. So how do you fish it? Now, when a lot of people think about A-rigs, they think you cast it out and fish it suspended. That is not what you do in fall for smallmouth bass, at least in my experience. What I like to do is I will cast this bait out as far as I can, and I will let it sink all the way down to the bottom, just like the swim bait, and I will slow roll it across the bottom. And the coolest part about it is that it catches huge fish. For some reason, this setup catches massive, massive fish. So that's my top 5 smallmouth bass fishing lures. The swim bait, the A-rig, jig and wrap style baits, the drop shot, and the jig. Now before you go, I want you guys to let me know down in the comment section down below what your top 5 smallmouth bass baits are. And it would be cool to have a fun discussion down there. I read every single comment. I reply to most of them, pretty much all of them, and I would love to hear what you guys think. And also don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos to come. I got some sweet stuff coming up, some fall stuff. Winter's just around the corner. I'll be doing some winter videos. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below. And I want to thank you guys for watching, and until next time, peace out. Also, I forgot to mention, if any of you have any questions about any of these presentations that I talked about in the video, definitely leave a comment below and I will do my absolute best to answer the question as best as I can. I really appreciate all of you that watch my videos, so I want to do everything I can to help you guys catch more fish. You guys rock. All right, peace out.